Quickly shifting gears to the Northern Super League. So super exciting announcements this past week.
Ooh, yes.
Jade Kovacevic, first league signing. Gabrielle Lambert and Charlotte Bibeau as well, first signings for the Montreal Roses. So if you're not going to be first, then you announce two. This is the way that we roll here. So the league and the clubs, whether they like it or not, and even if they have other players who are tied up in other contracts, they can't quite make the announcements. Dee, they're setting a tone, are they not? I mean, it's only 3 players who have officially been announced. More are to come. You're setting a tone kind of for your market, are you not, with these first signings?
Yeah, I think there was, for sure, and there was consideration of that, from the league and the clubs, because there would be the, I guess, positive or negative, dependent how the public decided to take it, that the first 1 or 2 or 3 full players could be, these are the players of the league, where like 4 players out of 150 players is maybe not a large enough sample size to be statistically relevant. But yeah, I thought it kind of was, and we've got more announcements, I think, coming up pretty quick too. I'm at camp right now, so I'm off work. But I believe a few more clubs will be announcing their first players in the next week or two as well. And I feel like we did actually land with a pretty decent sample of the types of players that are going to sign. I think we've got some veteran Canadian pros that the Canadian public doesn't necessarily know yet, but they've been playing soccer and high-level soccer, and like Jade scoring tons of goals for over a decade. So they've all got pretty incredible stories of where they've been. Internationals for sure. You saw one French player signed already. We're definitely going to be able to sign some strong international players, both because Canada is an attractive market for lots of folks who play women's soccer out there, and the minimum salary being, we think it's probably the second highest in the world from what we can tell, mostly because many leagues don't even have minimum salaries. So we've got a high benchmark there. So definitely there's going to be lots of international players coming. And yeah, I think there's obviously, to add to that too, I think you're going to see some more and more veteran players returning home. I think you're going to see, obviously, you'll get to know more of the future gen players too. And that's like, imagine this league was around like 2-3 years ago. Like we would have had Simi playing in the league. We would have had Olivia Smith playing in the league. We would have had, like, I bet Mimi would have been at, like, when did Chloe Lacasse like really break through? Like 4 years ago, like we would have had Chloe, like, so kind of whoever those next players are, we're going to have all of them. And that's very exciting to me. So I feel like it did end up being a pretty good sample size. And as our new VP Sport, Jose, tells me, and actually I see Jose tomorrow because he's from Lisbon.
Okay.
He keeps reinforcing to our clubs too, like, don't worry, you don't have a full roster yet. We actually have very little leverage against the agents at the time being, and the closer we get to February, the more leverage we have. So he tells us to be patient as well.
And I love that.
I've seen, I mean, we all know there's a lot of like, former players and retired players getting involved. I just saw like the Halifax Tides are waiting for like a FaceTime from a certain EM. And I'm just wondering, like, if you have any information about who that might be.
They're waiting for a FaceTime?
Yeah, they put it out today. They had this like FaceTime call from EM that they're waiting for on October 29th.
I mean, you don't have to do a whole lot of sleuthing to figure out who that is.
I believe Aaron just had a baby, so maybe that's the update.
Oh. Really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know they were that close.
I believe so. You know what? I don't actually know that's true, so I shouldn't spread rumors.
Close to actually
but I know they were very, very pregnant. So they may have had a baby by now.
I didn't know they were that close.
I hope Aaron doesn't mind that I said
that.
Well,
that's
Halifax Tides also dabbling in gynecology, right? Or OBGYN, right?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Metric spoke.
There's lots of EMs out there. Could have had a list ready to go, I guess. But.
Yeah, that's exciting.
It is exciting. And like you were talking about that, like the ecosystem.
Yeah.
That's what I mean personally, because it allows me to work and toil in this league. It'll allow this next generation to have that. And like the signings, what they're doing now, even if the players who are targeted are still tied up in contracts, it's that leverage piece that you're saying for the internationals, where you can have up to 7 for each team, but then also getting to know a player like Jade Kovacevic. And like, I've got a pretty good kind of decent finger on the pulse of the game in Canada. I didn't know Jade. So like, if I don't know Jade, there are a shit ton of people who don't know about Jade. And then we're going to be discovering a lot of players, like a whole pool of players that we don't know, and we're going to get to know them. So that's the really exciting part. And then also how the next generation will transition and can, if they so choose, stay in the game.
Yeah, and I think I totally agree about the stories, like Jade's story. There's going to be so many more players like that because these women have either had to travel the world to make a job out of what they love and what they're good at jobs that are pretty scarce. An international contract is hard to come by. There's lots of competition out there. And B, half the time, like, these women are doing other things, either to, just because they can or want to, or to make a little bit more money. So that, half the time they've got incredible like side projects or initiatives, or, I think Erin has had like 7 other things she's worked on. Some of these people have incredible initiatives. Like it is not an average group of women, I would say, that end up playing women's soccer. We're not to toot our own horn, but I feel like we do end up being fairly well-rounded, or more rounded in other ways, because we've had to be. The women's game is not yet, it might get to this, is not yet at a place where we're scouted by agents when we're like literally 12 or 13 or 14. And then as soon as you're with a big club or an academy, you're surrounded by agents or a team of people who take care of a lot of things for you, so you can just focus on soccer, and then you grow up just playing soccer, and that's it. Whereas we kind of had to be a jack of all trades, Jill of all trades. And often we went to university, but then maybe we're done playing and we also kind of start our own businesses, or we do side things, or we start podcasts, or we become doctors. Like,
that's the same, by the way, starting a podcast and becoming a doctor, same.
Yeah. And yoga teacher and coach. Like, think about, even you guys, you could have any subsection of like 3 or 4 or 5 women's pro soccer players on here and just see what other things they've done. It's incredible. So we're going to have so many of those women coming back to Canada, and Canadians are get to know a ton of them.
And another piece that I wanted to ask you about, and Claire, I'm going to loop you into this one, and I think we'll probably wrap up here unless Dee, you wanted to hit on anything else league-wide. But like, one of the challenges, but also opportunities, I think, with these clubs is they're going to be sharing venues, most likely be, one of 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 tenants, and not being the priority. And then other clubs like Montreal will be rotating and playing at a variety of venues. So I think that's an opportunity, though, to be seized in a country that lacks that soccer-specific infrastructure. But Vancouver Rise, and maybe Dee, you can speak to the former part of my question, or the first part, are rumored to be playing out of Swangard, and I played there once, I think, as part of the national team. I smashed the crossbar. Could have had 6 international goals. I only had 5.
Who was it against?
Mexico.
Mexico.
It was against Mexico.
I think
in 90.
too.
Yeah, I think it was in a World Cup prep in 99, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. But
we played Holland there in like the mid-aughts, maybe.
Okay. We played Mexico there leading up to the 2003 World Cup too, because that's one of my 3 goals.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
But a young Claire Rustad, if that was available at the time, you would have signed to play for the Vancouver Rise, would you not?
Are you? Yeah. I mean, like, I think I've talked about this before about how different my life would have looked if I was 19 now. You know what I mean? Like, there would have
made a lot more money, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I would have or wouldn't have.
We would have. Well, no, you're a doctor, so you're fine. But I mean, from the soccer bit.
The average person.
Yeah. From the soccer bit, we would have made a lot more money.
But there was one path for us, right? And the one path was you get a scholarship to the States, and that was it. And then if you hadn't cracked the national team by the end of that, you were kind of dropped off the map. Like, it just, that was it. That was the one way you got anywhere. And now, just with, the availability of online education, the university online, like, going to the NCAA is not the be all and end all. And I can't say that I wouldn't have chosen to play. Like, I probably would have chosen a more professional environment to play on. There were years when I played with the national team where I was unattached. I had no club team.
We were team unattached for a long time, and so is the
yeah.
men's national team. Like
There would
even
be, like,
Jimmy and
4 of us
Forrest
in a
talk about
row.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just I lived in a rural place. Like I couldn't and I was in high school. Like that's all I could do. So yeah, I think that it just provides such a big opportunity. We've talked a little bit before. I don't remember if Dee was on that day. I think Kiss was on that day. We were talking just a little bit about, all the players
Christina
and
Kiss, sporting director, Ottawa
Christina Kiss.
Rapid FC.
Yeah, all that. But we talked a little bit about it that day about how great it is to be able to get some of those kids who develop a little bit later or kind of drop off after the NCAA or whatever. And part of what I was kind of excited about as well is like being able to take advantage of the rural talent. Like there's kids in small towns that just don't even have access to get seen for NCAA scholarships. But now, you start to build this club network across the country, and that starts to kind of branch out, and you see, a Vancouver professional team kind of like get their feelers and their arms out into more rural environments. And that's kind of what I was excited about. Yeah, any additional opportunities I would have taken advantage of at that age for sure.
And to add on the stadium point, because obviously we feel it every day, and one of the reasons our full game schedule won't be out until probably end of January, beginning of February, is because we do share so many venues. So we have to wait for those primary tenants, secondary tenants, and their broadcasters to finalize their schedule before we can. So we have to wait specifically for CFL, TSN to set theirs, and which they don't look at till December. So we don't even get to start yet. So that delays us. But we've obviously been looking into, that's something I think the Canadian Premier League has done an incredible job in investing in soccer infrastructure and small size stadiums in this country, arguably better than anyone else. That's been fantastic. Or getting municipalities to rightly invest in sport infrastructure. I think they've done really, really well. For us, we want to be able to do the same because it's a hugely limiting factor. It impacts, what we just said. We can't schedule yet. We can't set broadcast dates. We can't get preferable dates in the calendar because there's a first or second tenant who has first dibs to those. So automatically we end up less often on, a game day or game time that's preferred by viewers or the people in the stands. So you're already a step back. It's a less favorable time to broadcast. So you're already a step back. It's a wrong size stadium. So the atmosphere is not going to be good. You're already a step back. So there's all these huge barriers that make the starting point even harder for what we're trying to do. So we've been trying to look at some comparables just to it's a sense everyone has. Like we don't have enough stadiums. We don't have enough training fields. I talked to the provinces and Canada Soccer members from across Canada. They all say the same thing. We don't have enough fields. We don't have enough indoor fields, and we don't have enough stadiums. So we've been looking at a few other countries. We tried to pick comparable countries to us. We looked at Australia, Sweden, Japan, Mexico. We tried to look at similar who's out there. Pretty much all of these countries, and we looked at mid-sized stadiums, so 8,000 to 18,000. That's how we defined it. And pretty much all of these countries have one mid-sized soccer stadium for every 500,000 people, give or take. They're pretty tightly in that range. In Canada, we have one mid-sized stadium for every 5 million people. And guess what? They're probably not soccer stadiums. So there's literally nowhere to play, nowhere. And that's something, we'll try and influence the cities and municipalities to help us invest. I think that is something, if this FIFA 2026 can find a way to try and impact that is truly legacy, because this is a huge, huge, huge infrastructure piece that is holding back the game in this country at every level, from Women's Pro League to, Halifax, Nova Scotia, where their one indoor field is at full capacity already, and then they need another one.
Is that legacy funding as part of FIFA or available via the World Cup in 2026? The moment itself, the event itself can be huge, but if we don't do anything around it, it's just going to come and it's going to go, and the impact isn't going to be felt. So is that something that the Canadian soccer ecosystem can get its hands on, or the Canada Soccer can get their hands on and actually use it to invest?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm not across all those conversations. I'm sure Kevin and Canada Soccer are. And I don't know the size of those legacy dollars either, because it could be the case where they're not even close to big enough to get stadiums built, right? Because even if it's a million or two times a number of projects, that does not get a stadium built. So usually stadiums have to take a few partners. So
Right.
maybe it's that easy, and that would be nice, but I'm not sure. I think it might take a bigger push than that.
So from a like small town, but not that far away from big city perspective, I mean, we really struggle here, and I'm sure it's like most communities where a significant proportion of the season is the fields are rained out, we can't use them, and there's no access to turf fields. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, what can people do to advocate for that? Not necessarily for like building stadiums in big cities, because I think that's awesome, and yes, we have to absolutely do that. But what is there available to smaller communities, and how can people advocate for increasing the quality of training facilities where they are and within their own clubs?
That's a good question, Claire. And I have raised this very large issue, but I didn't come with a plan here today, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Can you present your business plan, please? And go.
Small communities, like, I think, we probably are it would be nice to play on grass fields across the country, but the reality is turf is the reality for a lot of us. I think, what I would say, what we've been able to do with the Northern Super League and what I've seen effective in other areas is a few people that are in that community and really want to make the thing happen, connect with a few other people and make it happen. And I would say it's probably a soccer person in your club or provinces. The provinces are super helpful on this too. Provincial soccer organizations, that is, the city, corporate sponsorship. Like, you're gonna need a mix of money to get the thing built, and some cities have money, some don't. Some companies have money, some don't. Find one that believes in sport and how impactful sport is and healthy living on everything. They believe in making sport accessible. Like, let's build some fields, put a sponsor logo on it. Make small fields too. Like, we could just have more like 5v5 fields around the place. That'd be great too. But I think like a few people making a few connections and really want to make a thing happen, I bet you can do it.
I think it's a good reminder too. That was a great question, Claire. And Dee, what you always remind people. So, I mean, reach out, use your voice, connect with those that you know already who have power, who have influence, but you use your own voice to hopefully evoke that change, right? And then, like, the same people, if they want to help NSL before it kicks off next April, what can they do to support their local clubs, their franchises, or the league?
Great question. Well, anyone out there that wants to support the NSL and its clubs, let's do it. Right now, I believe the main things are follow the league and the club or clubs of your choice on social media channels, whichever ones your favorite are. I think a lot of the league and many of the clubs have newsletters now. Sign up for those, because those are going to be your first peek into any updates, season ticket sales, schedules. Those are the people that are going to get that information first. And season ticket deposits are on sale now, nsl.ca. Click on the club of your choice. $50 gets you first dibs on a season ticket when those go on sale later this year, before the end of the year.
That's awesome.